بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Al-Fiqh al-Istidlali. As you remember, we are studying the 5th chapter من أحكام الصوم شهر Ramadan, about rulings of fasting of the month of Ramadan. In the previous session we reached page 429. So we talked about وجوب الإمساك على من ارتكب المفطر. We discussed it, and then we reached here اختصاص القضاء بالعامد. I gave you a little introduction to this discussion, but we started as fresh again, and this discussion has some details, some arguments, so it takes maybe 2 sessions to complete. اختصاص القضاء بالعامد. The title of this part is that qada is only obligatory if someone intentionally, deliberately does one of the muftarat or more. Sheikh Irwani says من الواضح أن القضاء كالكفارة يجب على مرتكب المفطر عامدا. It's clear that qada, like kafara, the compensation that one has to bring, is necessary or obligatory upon the one who brings one of muftarat amidan, intentionally. This is wadih, in the sense that no one questions this part, that if you do muftar, bring one of muftarat, you must do qada. Which part is in need of discussion? When someone does one of muftarat unintentionally, this needs discussion. ولكن هل يجب على غير العامد أيضا؟ يعني هل يجب القضاء؟ هو إن يجب refers to القضاء. هل يجب القضاء على غير العامد أيضا؟ Is qada necessary or obligatory or compulsory for someone who doesn't deliberately bring muftarat? خب غير العامد can be someone who has forgotten that today was month of Ramadan, for example, or he's fasting, or forgotten that this is breaking fasting. But sometimes it's not a matter of forgetfulness. Maybe someone is forced, for example. Maybe someone is mustar, etc. وغير العامد تارة يكون ناسيا وأخرى، يعني تارة أخرى لا يكون كذلك. Like كمن يدخل الماء إلى جوفه قهرا, like someone that water reaches his stomach, inside body, go through the throat. Qahran means without his decision, forcefully. For example, someone puts water by force, or he is, sinking in river, for example, or sea, and water goes inside. He doesn't want to drink water. So we need to discuss in two different scenarios. فالكلام يقع تارة في الناس وأخرى في غيره، يعني تارة أخرى في غير الناس. خب. Now we start with ناسي. أما الناسي, the one who forgets, فلا إشكال في عدم وجوب القضاء عليه. There is no problem that qada is not obligatory for nasi. And this can be argued and explained in two ways. Ala wajhain. Or means ahad wajhain. One of the two ways you can argue for it. Al-awwal al-qusuru fil muqtadi. Qada needs muqtazi, because what is the main assumption? The main assumption is that qada has not belonged to you. Please listen carefully. This is usuli discussion in usul al-fiqh. When it comes to fasting of months of Ramadan, it's the months of Ramadan fasting. So I know that I have to bring fasting, and if I doubt whether I have fasted or not, I must make sure that I have done my wajib, because of qa'idah ishtighal. You remember in usul al-fiqh, al-ishtighal al-yaqini yastad'i al-faragh al-yaqini. If my dhimma is mashghul, if something is on my shoulder, my neck, I need to prove that I have done it. But qada is something that is not known that has belonged to you. Qada can only belong to some people. It's not like the main taklif that belongs to all mukallafin who are capable. So, if you don't know whether you have qada or not, the assumption is that you don't have. Or you know that you have qada, but you don't know it's 5 days or 4 days. We say, okay, 4 days. Extra is not proved. Okay? This is what we discuss in usul al-fiqh. That al-ishtighal al-yaqini yastad al-faragh al-yaqini. And in the case of qada, ishtighal is not proved. The principle, the main situation is that there is no qada unless it is proved otherwise. Okay? Inshallah, we will talk about this qusur fil muqtazi later. Maybe today we reach it, or beginning of next session. When we talk about ghayr al-nasi, other people who are not amid, but are not also nasi, like, by force, etc. We will talk about it, inshallah. So, muqtazi means, muqtazi in hukm means that there must be a hukm, there must be amr. And maybe here there is no amr for qadha. As-thani, but the second way to argue is to question adamul mani', by saying mani' exists. Because for everything we need muqtazi to be there and mani' or obstacle not to be there. Muqtazi mawjood, mani' mafqood. You remember I mentioned this example in I think one of the usul classes. I must have mentioned this, that one of my teachers, actually my very first teacher who was in Tehran, he said that once he went with his teacher when he was in Qom, after class, up to the door of the teacher, and then he said to his teacher, اگر مانعی ندارد مثلا داخل بیایم. اگر مانعی نیست، مانعی ندارد، داخل بیایم. If there is no obstacle, for example, sometimes family are, not ready, or, they have guests, etc. House is not ready, is not clean. There are lots of obstacles can be there. If there is no obstacle, I would like to come inside. And his teacher, with a sense of humor, said, مانع نیست اما مقتضی هم نیست. There is no obstacle, but there is no also مقتضی. There is nothing to, make me call you in. Either in the sense that we don't have anything to offer, or I don't have time, or, there is no reason, why you should go. That's a sense of humor. So, مقتضی موجود، مانع مفقود. The first way was to say, we don't know whether there is muqtazi, because the main assumption is qadha has not belonged to you unless it is proved otherwise. The second way is to say mani' exists. There's obstacle. وجود المانع وهو أحد أمرين. One of the two things can be mani' here. Number one, مثل قاعدة كل ما غلب الله عليه فليس على صاحبه شيء التي دلت عليها بعض الروايات. And in the footnote we have the address from Wasa'il al-Shia, volume 10, page 226. So rules such as this one that can be understood from some hadith. So these are the rules which are taken from hadith. كل ما غلب الله عليه فليس على صاحبه. Everything that Allah is dominant upon, Allah is controlling, then the person who is, dealing with this has no responsibility, no taklif. If something is, in the sense that if something is decided already by Allah as a hukm takwini, not tashri, as a hukm taklifi, for example, if lots of rain comes, I don't know, if there is a drought, if there is famine, if I am ill, for example, things that I don't have control. When I have no control, I have no responsibility. خب, nesyan is something that I have control or Allah has control. Those who argue in this way, they say nesyan is not what we have control. Whether we like it or not, even if we try hard, we may forget things. So we are not responsible if we forget and, for example, eat something or do one of the muftarat. The second way to say that there is mane is this. Ar-riwayatul khassa. It's not general rule like the first one. Is some specific hadith. من قبيل صحيحة محمد بن قيس عن أبي جعفر عليه السلام. Muhammad ibn Qais argues from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, كان أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام يقول, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, whose birth we celebrate tonight and tomorrow, he used to say, according to this hadith, من صام فنسي فأكل أو شرب فلا يفطر. Whoever fasts and then forgets and therefore as a result eats or drinks, لا يفطر, then he doesn't break his fasting and say, okay, unfortunately my fasting is finished. لا يفطر من أجل أنه نسي. He wouldn't, he shouldn't, he doesn't break his fasting because he has forgotten and as a result has eaten, for example. فَإِنَّمَا هُوَ رِزْقٌ رَزَقَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. This was his rizq. He had to drink this cup of water, although he's fasting, it's month of Ramadan. This is something that is to be taken in a positive way. So maybe Allah wanted me to drink this water. This was rizq from Allah for me. I didn't do something haram. Haram cannot be rizq. Haram is not rizq, but something which is halal. I didn't have any, kind of role in the sense of deliberately disobeying, so it's halal. فَلْيُتِمَّ صِيَامَهُ. So he continues with the niyyah of fasting and finishes this fasting. Hope. They say, look here, it's clearly saying that there is no qadha. Okay, there is no qadha. So there is obstacle for qadha, which is this kind of hadith. Hope. Maybe you say, but this is only about eating and drinking. We say, no, eating and drinking are not mentioned except as examples. Because the argument which is focusing on nisyan, being an excuse, can be extended to other muftarat. وبعموم التعليل يتعدى إلى غير الأكل والشرب من المفترات. Because our argument, our reason, our dalil here is general. What was the dalil? إنه نسي. من أجل أنه نسي. This is general. It's extended to things other than akl and shurb. Any muftarat other than akl and shurb can be included. Especially, we know that there is no khilaf, no disagreement among our scholars about the months of Ramadan. ألا أن المسألة لا خلاف فيها بلحاظ شهر رمضان. In the sense that our fuqaha would agree that if in the month of Ramadan I forgot and ate something, no problem. There's no qadha. And other muftarat. This about months of Ramadan? Certainly. What about outside months of Ramadan? بل وغيره من أنواع الصوم. Any fasting other than fasting of the months of Ramadan seems to be the same, according to what Sahib Jawahir has said. Sahib Jawahir was familiar with the opinions and fatwas. So based on his survey and research, there is no disagreement if someone even after months of Ramadan forgets and, for example, eats or drinks. بل وغيره من أنواع الصوم على ما ذكر في الجواهر, according to what is mentioned in Jawahir al-Kalam. هل يجوز التمسك بحديث الرفع? Can we also appeal to hadith raf, رفع عن أمتي تسعة? The Prophet said 9 things are removed from my ummah, meaning that they will not be questioned for. One of them is nisyan. So can we argue also from that hadith? Sheikh Ibn says we'll talk about it later. سيأتي الحديث عنه فيما بعد إن شاء الله. We will have discussion about it later. خب. This was about nasi. So the result is that nasi doesn't seem to have necessity or taklif of qadha. Nasi. أما غير الناسي means غير العامد الذي ليس بالناس. Yeah, because غير العامد can be nasi or غير nasi. So we are talking about the second type. No amd and no nisyan. Because of other reasons, this person has eaten or done muftarat. أما غير الناسي فلا إشكال في عدم وجوب القضاء عليه أيضا with respect to غير الناصي also there seems to be no ambiguity here, no problem, except one case. إلا في البقاء على الجنابة, except in the case that someone remains junub in the months of Ramadan. For example, he wakes up and then he sleeps again. We talked about it before. Other than this case, then there seems to be no problem that qadha is not necessary for غير العامد غير الناسي. غير العامد غير الناسي. وقد يستدل له بوجهين. There are two kinds of ways to argue. So arguments are made in two ways. The first one is what we said we will discuss later about muqtazi. أحدهما means أحد الوجهين القصور في المقتضي, to say that there is no اقتضاء, no muqtazi, there is nothing to require this. بدعوة, دعوة here means ادعاء, means claim. The claim is this: أن الاجتناب الوارد في صحيحة ابن مسلم. You remember in Sahih ibn Muslim it was said that as long as Sa'im does ijtinab, avoids the three things, then it's okay. If someone brings muftir without qasd, has avoided those three things. Bid'ah. So this is the way they claim, and make this argument. أن الاجتناب الوارد في صحيحة ابن مسلم يصدق مع ارتكاب المفطر لا عن قصد. When it says if he avoids three things like irtimas, akl and shurb and such things, in our case this person who didn't have intention, without intention and without forgetfulness, غير الناسي غير العامد, this person has not had qasd, so we can say has ijtanaba. When he knew, when he was conscious, he avoided. يصدق al-ijtinab يصدق, so يصدق zamir pronoun goes back to ijtinab. أن الاجتناب الوارد في صحيحة ابن مسلم يصدق. We can say that ijtinab applies to this case. So he has done ijtinab, he has avoided. يصدق مع ارتكاب المفطر لا عن قصد. If someone does muftir but without qasd, we can say he's avoided, because when he was mindful, he was not doing this. وفيه, but Sheikh Irwani says, how can we say to someone who has actually eaten that he has avoided eating? He has problem, but I think some fuqaha don't have problem, because ijtinab means if it is in your hand, as much as you have control. This person, as much as he had control, he didn't eat. When he had control, he didn't eat, he avoided. Yeah. For example, I can say I was driving carefully to avoid any accident. Then if someone hits me, can I say that I was not avoiding? No, still I can say I was avoiding. I did my best to avoid actually accident, but someone else hit me, no problem. But Sheikh Irwani has issue with this. So he says, كيف يصدق على من أكل بالفعل أنه اجتنب الأكل? How can to someone who has actually eaten be said and be true that he has avoided akl? When you say أكل بالفعل, you think as if it was intentional. But if it was unintentional, yes, اجتنب الأكل. Number 2, فهو ما دل. The second way to argue is to say that غير الناسي should be treated like nasi. We said غير العامد has two types, nasi and غير الناسي. But both of them we are talking about غير العامد, yeah? So غير العامد, who is not nasi, should be treated like nasi. فحوى. So the implicit meaning of those things that indicate that qada is not obligatory for nasi would include غير الناسي as well. فإنه يدل على عدم وجوبه على غيره بالأولوية. You remember أولوية, مفهوم أولويات. For example, we said when Allah says لا تقل لهما أف, it's understandable that if to say I am tired, for example, with you is a problem, then na'udhu billah, to beat them certainly is haram. This is mafhum al-awlawiyya. When someone who forgets is okay, doesn't need qada. So what about someone who is, for example, forced or is mustar? Because nasi, although he didn't want, but now he is intentionally eating or drinking. Yeah, he goes to fridge, takes in a bottle of water and drinks. He intended. Of course, the reason was because he had forgotten. But anyway, he did something by intention. But if someone, for example, is forced, he didn't intend. So, if for nasi there is no qada, we can say then mafhum muwafiq and awla is that for غير nasi is the same. There is no qada. فإنه يدل على عدم وجوبه، يعني عدم وجوب القضاء على غيره، يعني على غير الناسي بالأولوية. Why we say بالأولوية? Because فإن الناسي قاصد إلى الفعل. فإن الناسي قاصد إلى الفعل. Nasi, anyway, he's doing qasd. He goes to the fridge and takes water and drinks. Everything is with qasd. Just he didn't remember. It's not that he deliberately wanted to disregard rulings of fasting. وغيره, but غير الناسي even doesn't have this much of qasd, this much of intention. But Shaykh Irwani says, nasi, it is true that goes intentionally to the fridge and intentionally takes a bottle of water and intentionally puts in the cup and intentionally drinks. Okay. But he doesn't have attention to fasting. He has forgotten, he has escaped, especially in the beginning of the months of Ramadan. It happens that sometimes you don't remember that you are fasting because it's just starting. إن الناسي غير ملتفت إلى الصوم وإن قصد الفعل. Although has made niyyah of drinking, but had no attention of drinking in the month of Ramadan, because the issue of Sawm was not in his mind. He was غير ملتفت, means he was not paying attention to Sawm. بخلاف غيره, بخلاف غير الناسي. غير ناسي, like mustar, majbur, فإنه ملتفت إليه, has attention that it's months of Ramadan and I shouldn't, eat and drink, but he is forced. He didn't want, but he's forced, for example. وإن لم يقصد الفعل. So in this case, then we can have no yaqeen, no jazm, no certainty that awlawiyya exists. So maybe it's better to go by the first wajh, not the second wajh. This fahwa was athani. The first one was page before. Al-qusuru fal-muqtazi. لعل الأولى التمسك بالوجه الأول. But instead of arguing like before, we can bring another taqrib, another articulation. What is this? انما دل على وجوب or انما دل على وجوب القضاء من روايات و غیرها لا اطلاق فيها. The issue of having no muqtazi. We say those evidence and reasons that we have for qadha should include this case so that we can say qadha is needed. But we say without it is including this case, because there is no itlaq. There is no umum, certainly. There is no even itlaq. أنما دل على وجوب القضاء من روايات وغيرها لا إطلاق فيها. Any reason that has been mentioned for necessity of qadha has no generality of itlaq, so that we can appeal to them. ليتمسك به في غير القاصد, for someone who has no intention. So we said riwayat wa ghayr riwayat, whatever is dalil for qadha. Now let us examine them one by one. Any dalil, any reference that someone can bring for necessity of qadha, we mention and see that we are not able to prove that they include our case. What is our case? Someone who has done muftarat without intention and without forgetting. This is our case. خب فلنستعرض تلك الأدلة وبيان قصورها. Let us deal with those adilla references and explain that they are not complete. He has many wujuh. As you see, it continues. 9 arguments, 9 ways of arguing for qadha he mentions, but he doesn't believe any of them is a good reason and complete reason for saying that qadha is needed for ghayrun nasi. Let us see maybe 1 or 2 of them for today. وَلَعَلَّ الْأَوْلَى التَّمَسُّكُ بِالْوَجْهِ الْأَوَّلِ قُصُورُ مُقْتَضِي. But in another way, أنما دل على وجوب القضاء من روايات وغيرها لا إطلاق فيها ليتمسك به في غير القاصد. Whatever reason is brought for necessity of qadha or obligation of qadha, whether it's riwayat or other things, has no itlaq, so that we can use that itlaq for someone who is, in our case, means غير العامد, غير القاصد, غير الناسي. So let us استعراض, let us deal with those dalil and say why they are not complete. Number 1, which is riwayah. Sahihat ibn Muslim. You remember Sahih ibn Muslim? We mentioned today also that as long as you avoid 3 things, it's okay. الدالة على أن الصائم لا يضره ما صنع إذا اجتنب الخصال الثلاث. Sa'im, whatever he does would not harm him, means would not harm his fasting, as long as has avoided 3 things. وَمَفْهُومُهَا. So the implicit meaning of this, you remember mafhum and mantuq from usul al-fiqh. Mafhum of this sahih is that if he doesn't do ijtinab, there's a problem. It says la yadhurru, as long as ijtanaba. So if he doesn't do ijtinab, he doesn't avoid, then yadhurruhu, مفهومها أن غير المجتنب يعني غير المجتنب عن تلك الثلاث يضره ذلك. Okay. But يضره في الجملة or بالجملة. يضره according to موجبية كلية means بالجملة means 100% of the cases or في الجملة partially some of the cases. There can be cases that without اجتناب because we cannot say if you اجتناب it's okay, if you don't do اجتناب definitely it's a problem. No. If there is اجتناب no problem, but if there is اجتناب no problem, if there is no اجتناب you have to look for other things and decide. You cannot say 100%. So أن غير المجتنب يضره ذلك في الجملة لا بالجملة فلا إطلاق. There is no إطلاق. Why? لأن المنطوق صالبة الكلية. What was said is صالبية كلية. فيكون مفهومه موجبة جزئية لا موجبة كلية. We have said in logic, in منطق, and usul al-fiqh here relies on منطق. If someone says no A is B, no A is B, then if you want mafhum, we have to go to opposite, we have to go to other side. The result would be that some of them are not included in salb, means some of them are confirmed with that quality. Salib kulliya is wrong, so mujibi juz'iyya is right. If, for example, if someone says, for example, no one in this city was a faqih. No one in this city was faqih. And we say this is wrong. So the implicit meaning is that at least one person in this city was faqih. Yeah? Salib kulliyah can be false if even one person was faqih. So mujibiyya juz'iyya is proved. But to say that all the people are faqih, it's not proved. It's not implied. Yeah? If we say no one is faqih from this city, if it has mafhum, is that at least one person was faqih. لأن المنطوق صالبة الكلية فيكون مفهومه موجبة جزئية لا موجبة كلية. So therefore we have to go to قدر متيقن. What is certain? When it is not موجبة كلية, it's موجبة جزئية. So some cases are like this. Which cases are certainly included? So that we say, okay, at least we keep these and the rest are not known. The case which is certainly known is when someone... Second hadith is Sahiha of Abu Basir Sama'a from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Sahiha to Abi Basir wa Sama'a and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. It is about some people that in the months of Ramadan they were fasting. Then they saw a very, thick and dark cloud, which made it like night. It was before Maghrib, so and they didn't have watch or clock, so they thought it is time for iftar. Some of them broke their fast. Now, the problem is that after a while, the cloud went away, sky was clear, and they still could see sun. It was 20 minutes, maybe half an hour before Maghrib. What should they do? Do they need to do qadha or not? قوم صاموا شهر رمضان فغشيهم سحاب أسود عند غروب الشمس. غشیه means covered them. سحاب اسود, black. When sometimes you see the clouds are full of water and they are black or very dark gray. فَرَأَوْا أَنَّهُ اللَّيْلُ. Ra'aw here doesn't mean yaqeen. Ra'aw means they had the ra'i, they had the opinion. Then they thought, they believed it is night. فَأَفْتَرَ بَعْضُهُمْ. Some of them broke their fasting. ثُمَّ إِنَّ السَّحَابًا جَلَى. Injala from jala. Injala means was cleared. Cloud was cleared, sky was visible. فَإِذَا الشَّمْسُ means فَإِذَا الشَّمْسُ مثلا موجودة. Sun was there. According to this hadith, Imam alayhi salam said, عَلَى الَّذِي أَفْطَرَ صِيَامُ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. Upon the one who has broken, those who have broken their fasting, upon them is fasting of that day. Means they have to do qadha. Why? إن الله عز وجل يقول أتم الصيام إلى الليل. In the Quran, Surah Baqarah, verse 187, Allah says, complete fasting up to the night. So before night starts, you must not break your fasting. فَمَنْ أَكَلَ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَدْخُلَ اللَّيْلِ. Whoever eats before night arrives, فَعَلَيْهِ قَضَاءُ. Must do qadha of that day. Why? لأنه أكل متعمدا. Because has eaten intentionally. خب. Sheikh Irwani says this hadith has itlaq. It's not like the previous one, because it says من أكل قبل أن يدخل الليل فعليه قضاء. Has a kind of itlaq. Of course for akl, but maybe someone says, okay, if akl is this, shurb is the same, etc. But there is a kind of reasoning at the end, because it says من أكل قبل أن يدخل الليل فعليه قضاء. This is mutlaq, okay, this is general, but it's not umum, but it's اطلاق بقرينة مقدمات حكمة. But it says لأنه أكل متعمدا. In usul al-fiqh we said al-illatu mu'ammimatun wa mukhassasa. Illa if is mentioned, then when illa exists we can extend even if it is not included. And if illa doesn't exist, we exclude even if it was included. For example, someone goes to tabib, to physician. Physician says لا تأكل الرمان فإنه حامض. Don't eat pomegranate, it is sour. خب لا تأكل الرمان means don't eat pomegranate, and it's mutlaq. Yeah, he didn't specify, so any pomegranate should be avoided. But then he says because it is sour, this ta'lil does two things. One is ta'mim, one is takhsis. Anything then which is hamid can be included. Anything which is not hamid, is not sour, is excluded, even if it is pomegranate. So sour orange should be avoided. Sweet pomegranate is not excluded. So Sheikh Irwani says, although this hadith has itlaq, but they cannot use it for this purpose. Why? Illa anna ta'lil, because this ta'lil at the end says لأنه أكل متعمدا. Our discussion is about غير العامد, so it doesn't include people who don't have amd, who don't have deliberate decision. إلا أن التعليل يمنع من التمسك به. This ta'lil prevents appealing to this hadith, to this itlaq. Inshallah, in the next session we continue with the rest of points. We said that he mentions overall 9 points, riwayat and non-riwayat, which are used for qada, and we'll see one by one whether they can be used for muftir who is not amid and not nasi or not. Inshallah, we continue this discussion بإذن الله next week. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.